to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And like I've done the last couple of days, I'm going to combine two topics into one. Tomorrow night, I originally said I would be doing a call-in show tonight, but I got called into work. But tomorrow night, I'll be doing a New York Giants call-in show, and I'm sure I'll probably have a few videos up for you guys tomorrow. This will probably be my last one of the day because I'm working late tonight. But I want to go over a couple of topics. The first thing I want to go over is the New York Giants coaching staff and the news about them all heading to the NFL Scouting Combine. Give my thoughts on that, breaking that down. And obviously the Combine is going to be on the 23rd. Now, the players, I don't think, partake in the drills until the 27th, but that's coming up fast. Today's the 20th, so in 3 days, the players will report to the Combine, and that is when the offseason will really heat up, because that's when I'll have my mock draft after the Combine. That's when you're going to, free agency's closer. The draft is getting closer, so everything gets a lot more exciting right around the end of that. We actually get to see these prospects participate in these drills and get to, kind of speculate as to where they will be going in the draft. And then obviously free agency, it gets even more exciting because then teams start to fill their needs. So I cannot wait for that. I'm also going to touch on the news about Everson Griffen and how the Minnesota Vikings have moved on from the longtime pass rusher. Well, I should actually say it the other way around. Everson Griffen moved on from the Vikings because Griffen had an opt-out clause in his contract. Now, he was due to make $13 million against the cap for the Minnesota Vikings, and he turned that down. I think he still had 3 years left on that contract, but we all know how it works in the NFL. They could cut you at any point in time when there's not a dead cap hit. None of that money is guaranteed. He had signed an extension, I think, a year or two ago with the Vikings, but he still had 3 years left on that contract, to my knowledge. But the Giants, obviously, are in the market for a pass rusher, and Griffen could certainly help them. Now, I think he's married, basically, to the 4-3 system. He stands at 273 pounds. Very accomplished player. He's coming off a Pro Bowl season in which he had a great year. And we'll see how the Minnesota Vikings plan to replace him. Or some rumors have had it that the Minnesota Vikings may very well bring him back. He's up there in age, and I'll get a little bit more into the specifics with that. But first, what I wanted to do was start with the coaching staff news and what I'm really excited about. Now, this isn't like huge news, but because it's a new coaching staff, I think it's pretty cool. Usually when teams go to the scouting combine, they may bring, a couple of scouts. Maybe the general manager will go there. Maybe the new head coach will go there. Not with the New York Giants. The New York Giants, supposedly, from the tweet that I read, I'm going to pull it up for you guys right now, are bringing the entire coaching staff. From the way I read it, it's not just Joe Judge. It's not just the coordinators. It's everybody will be at the scouting combine. And I think that is actually pretty cool and actually pretty important. And I'll explain why. Well, several teams, this off of Tom Rock, who works for Newsday. Well, several teams seem to be paring down their contingents in Indy for the Combine, relying on video rather than in-person meetings. I'm told the Giants are sending their full staff. So, all aboard. And that's a really good point that Tom Rock brings up, that, most teams, do that. They'll rely on video evidence. They'll send a couple of scouts. The head coach is usually there. But they don't send, the quarterback's coach. They don't send the wide receivers coach. They're sending everybody there. They're showing team unity here. And I think it's important, actually, to get more hands-on experience, to actually be able to talk to these players face-to-face. Yeah, anybody could have a clipboard and say, oh, this guy ran a 4.4540. But to actually get a feel for these players and talk to them in player interviews, that's just as important to me when it comes to the NFL Combine as anything else. And I think the Giants are going to be able to talk to these guys on a more personal level. The fact that they're bringing every coach known to man, and it's always good to get more than one opinion. And I like that. Joe Judge, to me, is showing his CEO mentality here. He's saying, you know what, I want to get your input. I want to get the input from Burns, the running back coach. I want to get everybody's input. So I think this is pretty cool, and it's something new, and you don't see that often. But the New York Giants will be in full attendance at the NFL Combine. And like I said, it starts in just 3 short days, so a lot of news will come out with that. I also read that there's going to be an interview. I think next week, both Joe Judge and Dave Gettleman will talk. So, I'm sure there'll be some good quotes that come from that that I'm really looking forward to, talking about with you guys. But the other news that I wanted to bring up was Everson Griffen. And Everson Griffen is a very good defensive end. I think he's 3 or 4 times he's been to the Pro Bowl. We'll get to that in a second when I pull up his stats. But, yeah, obviously one of the biggest needs for the New York Giants is a pass rusher. And this is just one more guy that could potentially be available. Now, like I said, there were some rumors, and a lot of Vikings fans think that he could be doing this to try to save the Vikings some money with the cap. They were about to be over the cap, so they did this. Now they have a little bit of cap space to spend on the draft and things like that. But if you're Griffen at this point in your career, he's 32 years old. I think he's going to be 33 in late December, so he's up there in age. If you get offered a contract that the Vikings can't offer him, I personally think he'd be foolish to turn it down. Now, maybe he wants to spend the entirety of his career with one organization, and that is very rare that a player would take less money to do that. But I suppose it's possible, and who knows what the Vikings and him may have worked out. But I do think he's a player that the New York Giants should certainly kick the tires on and have some interest in on a short-term deal. Because of his age, I'm not signing him to more than a 3-year deal with the ability to get out after 2. But he's a very accomplished pro, and he's been very good for the Minnesota Vikings. But here's the tweet. Vikings defensive end Everson Griffen has opted to void the remainder of his contract, per Courtney Cronin, making him a free agent. Griffen has a clause that grants him the option of voiding the rest of his deal if he had 6+ sacks in 2019. He finished with 8. By doing this, it saves the Vikings $13.1 million in cap space. But then you have to ask yourself, why would he have avoided that deal? Players are not in – it's not about charity when it comes to the NFL. In my opinion, Everson Griffen, unless he's just trying to help out the Vikings, but I don't think that makes much of my financial sense. In my opinion, Everson Griffen is looking at an opportunity. Maybe he sees a pass rushing market where he thinks he can make more money on the open market. Now, maybe they'd have to match that $13 million salary, but give more guarantees. Obviously, because that extension is, worn along a little bit, he probably wasn't given the full guarantee. Or maybe the Vikings said, hey, we're going to have to cut you, and we'd rather you do this, and maybe we could work out another deal. That, I suppose, is still on the table. But I definitely think that Griffen could probably command at least $10, $11 million a year on a 3-year deal, and maybe he gets more guaranteed money, which is why I'm sure he's going to test out the free agency market. He'd be a fool not to, and I think that's why he insisted on putting that provision in. The Vikings didn't. So there you have it. And I think he's a guy the New York Giants definitely have to take a look at. And when you look at his numbers, Everson Griffen, like I said, has been in the league now for 10 years. He's a defensive end. He's not a guy that's going to be very versatile. He's not going to be able to play that outside linebacker spot. He's never done it. So I don't know if the Giants will have a lot of interest. We'll have to wait and see. But he's certainly a very accomplished pro and just another name in the free agency market at the pass rusher position, which is another option for another team. So maybe the player that the Giants want, if they don't want Griffen, falls in their lap because, say, another team signs Griffen. But here's what Griffen's done over the course of his career. He's got 74.5 career sacks. The guy's made a number of Pro Bowls. I cut it off a little bit so I can't see, but I think it was 3 or 4. You look at his sack totals. He's had 3 double-digit sack seasons. He's coming off a year in which he had 8. And I think from what I read, he only played about 76% of the snaps and still was able to have 8 sacks in 15 games. He's a very good player, and he would bring veteran leadership. And on a short-term deal, he wouldn't just make a lot of sense for the Giants. I think he'd make a lot of sense for a lot of teams. But he's a guy that you want to keep an eye on, and the type of free agent that I think the Giants should have an eye on. If they're not planning on spending big and signing a 5-year deal, if you get Griffen on a 2 or 3-year deal, it could make a ton of sense. And then finally, there was this. This was talking about the reasoning as to why Minnesota moved on and the expectations. The move was likely done for a couple of reasons. The most prevalent being his looming $12.9 million cap hit. All right, so they're saying 12.9. The other guy said 13.1. We'll just say $13 million. That might have made him a cap casualty had he not decided to opt out. This also means there's a chance Griffen re-signs with the Vikings at a lower cost, but his freedom also carries the inherent possibility someone else could throw a monkey wrench in that plan by offering him a hefty payday to officially pack up and leave Minnesota. So there you have it. There's the news. In terms of Griffen, it is still possible that he could be going back to the Vikings, but it left open the possibility if a team offers him more than what the Vikings are willing to give him, he's probably going to take that payday. There's a reason at 32 years old he opted out of $13 million. He thinks he could probably get more guaranteed money. He might not get more per year, but he could get more guaranteed money. And at his age, when injuries are obviously even more of a possibility, he wants as much money as he could get. He doesn't want to risk that. That's my guess as to why he did what he did. Maybe if you're a Vikings fan, you actually believe that he did this to try to help out your football team and he's going to take a big discount. I doubt it. I think he's going to take, if a team gives him a good offer, I think he'll take it. Now, whether or not the New York Giants should be that team, well, that is the debate. I wouldn't want to give him more than 3 years with the ability to get out after 2, where I wouldn't be taking a cap at after 2 years. 2-year commitment, the guy still showed he could play last year. He had 8 sacks. known as one of the better defensive ends in the league still at this point in his career. I'm fine with that. You play him, he'd be 34 at the end of that contract, and then you move on and you pass the bill over to somebody else. But the Giants are desperate for a pass rusher, and this guy may make sense. Of course, they could bring back Marcus Golden and bring in Griffen. That'd be a possibility as well. But I do think he'd be married to the 4-3 system. I don't know if it's the best fit for the New York Giants. But another name in the free agency market that even if the New York Giants do not bring him in, at least is another attraction for another team, which may free up somebody else that wouldn't have been freed up otherwise had Griffen not been on the open market. So something that you want to take into account. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.